is back. Chrysler is the fastest growing automaker in the world. And what's happened? What's Ryan's and Romney's response? Desperation. Desperation. In the last hours of this campaign, I just came from Ohio. In the last hours of this campaign, if you can believe it, they're running the most scurrilous ad in Ohio. And I mean this sincerely. I want you to listen. One of the most flagrantly dishonest ads I can ever remember in my political career.
Welcome back to Harvard. That was, of course, Vice President Biden referring to the advertisement we talked about in yesterday's show, in which the Romney campaign leaves the distinct impression, I'd say, the false impression that General Motors and Chrysler will send American jobs overseas to China. Here's part of the Romney ad.
Obama took GM and Chrysler into bankruptcy and sold Chrysler to Italians who are going to build Jeeps in China. Mitt Romney will fight for every American job.
Well, this is not the first time a Romney ad has spread a falsehood. Think of the ads that misled on Romney's position on contraception and the erroneous ad that said that President Obama ended the work requirement for welfare. By the way, that ad's still running. But this time he messed with the wrong group, the auto industry itself. A General Motors spokesman condemned the ad of Romney, saying, quote, "We've clearly entered some parallel universe during these last few days. No amount of campaign politics at its cynical worst will diminish our record of creating jobs in the United States and repatriating profits back to this country." And the CEO of Chrysler sent an email to all of its employees that said, "Chrysler Group's production plans for the Jeep brand have become the focus of public debate. I feel obliged to unambiguously restate our position. Jeep production will not be moved from the United States to China. It's inaccurate to suggest anything different." Steve Ratner was formerly the Obama administration's auto advisor. He was the lead auto advisor, sometimes called the car czar. Bill Vlasic is Detroit bureau chief for the New York Times and author of Once Upon a Car, The Fall and Resurrection of America's Big Three automakers, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. Let me start with Bill. Bill, your thoughts about this. I mean, I read the commercial. I see how cleverly it's written and how it could be literally true, but how it delivers a message that Obama basically brought down the Big Three, brought down two of them at least, Chrysler and Jeep, and that he's moving jobs out of Detroit and out of the United States. I think both those claims are false. What is your view, in fact, objective reporting on that?
Well, it's very unusual for General Motors and Chrysler, first off, to respond to a political ad. Both companies were bailed out and have turned their fortunes around since their bankruptcies. And I think they both took a vow of silence during this political campaign and to try and stay as far away from the partisan politics as possible. But as one GM executive told me, this ad crossed a line. It was, as they said, too outrageous and misleading for them not to respond to. The fact is, General Motors has been building vehicles in China for many years. It's one of the largest car makers in China. But no automakers sell cars made in the United States into China because of import duties and the costs associated with that. On the Chrysler side, it's troubling that they would attack Jeep, which has sort of been the cornerstone of Chrysler's comeback, and Toledo, Ohio, and Detroit, Michigan, where they are adding jobs, shifts in the plants, and making more Jeeps than ever before, and can't keep them in stock long enough. So to suggest that they need to go elsewhere to build their Jeeps is false. And the fact of the matter is, in the global auto industry today, particularly in China, the mantra is build them where you sell them. So this idea that somehow American jobs are at risk because of Chinese production really doesn't add up.
Let me go to Steve Ratner. I think for the people that have just been following this, the big decision that Obama had to make, and you had to make as one of his officers, was what? What was the key philosophical or governmental choice that had to be made on your watch to save the American auto industry and the way to save it?
Of course, there was a broad question of whether government should intervene at all in the private sector and the industrial sector, which even those of us who are Democrats are very loath to see happen. Once we crossed that threshold, the really tough decision the president had to make was whether to save Chrysler or not. Chrysler was the #3 company. It was only operating in North America. It didn't have a single car on the Consumer Reports most recommended list. Many of the president's advisors felt that The government should not be in the business of saving losing companies, and I agreed with that view, or I sympathized with it anyway. And the reason the president came down the other way was because we had available to us this partnership with Fiat, and specifically the CEO of Fiat, Sergio Marchionnie, who we thought was a world-class leader, and the fit between the two companies was fabulous, and we thought that he could turn around Chrysler, and he has done all those things. And so I think all of us who are involved with this could not be more delighted about the partnership with Fiat as opposed to being critical of it.
Let me ask you, Bill, as you cover the industry, explain the geography of the American Auto Production Center. It's in Detroit. How much of it, what states really are involved in it? Besides Ohio, we've heard a lot about. Where is the sort of the Leviathan, if you will, of the American auto industry? Where does it spread to? Where do we build our cars?
Well, it's a national industry. The big three automakers, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, still have the bulk of their American production in the Midwest. Ohio, Michigan, some in Illinois, but it's in Kansas City, in Texas. There used to be plants in Georgia and Missouri. As we all know, the industry has shrunk quite a bit in recent years. Part of the problem with General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler is they had too many plants. And too few buyers. So the industry's gone through a tremendous restructuring. But it is a national industry, and of course the Japanese automakers and the German automakers are concentrated in the southern states, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama.
And they build their cars here to sell here, right? They build their cars here mainly, right?
Every major automaker, if they're successful, tries to build as many cars as they can in the market in which they're selling them. And that's no different if it's the U.S. or Europe or China, for that matter. And China has the additional qualifications of the Chinese government requires any automaker that's making cars there to have a partner in China, and pretty much discourages imports into China by slapping large tariffs and duties on cars. Okay, so to sell Jeeps in China in any volume need to be built there.
Thank you. Well, that settles it, because the issue now is whether Jeeps are building Jeeps in America for Americans. They clearly are. The company has made that clear. The Chrysler company, which makes Jeeps, said they're making all their cars here, that the ad run by Romney's wrong. Now, here's the Romney ad defending the auto ad. They're defending it, which had been denounced by auto company leaders. The New York Times reports, quote, the Romney campaign has insisted that its ad merely states the truth. Quote, Jeeps are not currently made in China and soon will be, creating jobs there instead of at home. It would be better if they expanded production in the United States instead of expanding in China, said Stuart Stevens, the senior advisor to Mr. Romney. Well, a GM spokesman responded to this, saying, quote, that is absolutely bereft of any fundamental understanding of the global automotive industry. All global manufacturers, whether General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, or VW, build historically in the markets in which we sell. Steve Ratner, last, just to nail this down, it seems to me the reality is, beyond all the nonsense in the ads put out by Romney to get votes, are that we build Jeeps in this country for people to buy them in this country, as I've done, and we build Jeeps in China for Chinese people to buy. And that's the way it's been. It's the way it will be, according to all future plans.
Yes, and I think both you and Bill and what you just read from the GM spokesman have made that very clear. Cars are being built near to where people buy them. Now, as it happens, we do actually export a reasonable number of Jeeps at the moment because it is such an iconic brand and of such demand worldwide. And what Sergio Marchionnie committed was that Jeep Wranglers, that particular Jeep product, will only be made in Toledo for the foreseeable future. And any Jeep Wranglers that are bought around the world, and as I said, it is an iconic brand, will be exported from the U.S. But we do want these companies to make cars close to where their customers are. We want Chrysler to be profitable. We want General Motors to be profitable. And these are all good things, not bad things, from the standpoint of the American taxpayer and the American citizens.
And I own a Wrangler. My daughter owns a Wrangler. They're great cars. Anyway, thank you very much, Bill Blasek of the New York Times, and Steve Ratner, who was the car czar.